When I first saw I had a video scheduled for April Fool's Day, I knew I had to do an episode about some sort of prank, but I just need to pick the best one. Maybe I could cover the time the BBC convinced people that spaghetti literally grew on trees. Maybe I could do an episode about the time Taco Bell told people they bought and rebranded the Liberty Bell. Maybe I could do one about the time Garth Brooks convinced people he was going to pretend that he was a sex addict rock and roller named Chris Gaines. Wait, that one actually happened. Ultimately, I decided to go with my gut instinct and pick the first idea that came to mind. That fateful April Fool's in 1998, when shock jocks Opie and Anthony told the city of Boston that their mayor was dead. Before their meteoric rise and also meteoric fall, Greg, Opie Hughes, and Anthony Cumia were just two guys trying to make it in radio. They met in 1994 when Anthony submitted a parody song called Gun Electric Shock OJ to Opie's radio show. Set to the tune of Otis Redding's Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, it's about OJ and how they're gonna electric shock him.
It works at so many levels!
And yes, he is doing exactly what you think he is doing in this music video. Opie and Anthony struck up a friendship, and eventually they decided Anthony would become Opie's partner. They sent demos out and caught the attention of a rock station out of Boston called WAAF. In 1995, just a few months after their first meeting, they had their first true radio job together. They were a new duo coming into a new market onto a station that would definitely be considered an underdog. AAF had its fans, but they were fighting an uphill battle against the more established station WBCN. BCN was an institution in Boston, and AAF had a hard time gaining a foothold. It didn't help that AAF's signal was infamously poor. It was easier to hear the station in the city of Worcester than the city of Boston. The duo were inexperienced, but it worked to their benefit because they didn't know any better. They were desperate to make a name for themselves and decided to take BCN head on. Former BCN DJ Mark Parento said, "They were the first ones who really saw that WBCN could be vulnerable." The success of Howard Stern led to an epidemic of shock jocks in the 90s, but I don't think any of them were as cutthroat as Opie and Anthony. They set their sights on making a name for themselves by any means necessary. They developed a loyal following and weaponized those fans by doing things like encouraging them to harass BCN DJs in public. AAF catered to a younger demo than BCN, so much so that O&A were encouraged to downplay their actual ages. This meant they could cast BCN as the station for older, lamer people, while AAF was for the cool young dudes, brother man. Their antics were juvenile, but so were their fans, and those fans were incredibly rabid. It may seem insane to you kids nowadays with your TikTok dances and your Dan Fogelberg records, but not only did people care about the radio back then, they cared about the guys who talked between the songs. Ratings in radio are very competitive, and a lot of DJs fought like their livelihoods depended on it because their livelihoods depended on it. One bad ratings book and you're on your ass doing overnights in Sheboygan. They feuded with a lot of people at BCN, but the feud with a DJ named Nick Carter got particularly ugly. Nick Carter is a black man, and felt that the language Opie and Anthony were using about him was getting too racial. When they found out, O&A responded very tactfully.
You're a big, fat chicken with a lazy eye. What the hell is that all about? What? Oh, now Opie's getting personal. I don't give a crap, flunky. That's right. See, we're under no one's power. Remember, Disco Boy, we were told not to call you Disco Boy on the air. Remember, because you cried to your bosses about it. Remember that, Disco Boy? Disco Boy. Remember that, Disco Boy? Called Lionel Richie's love child, remember? Pussy Boy. Well, that does it. Disco Boy.
He's done. He is done. He's a big, fat crybaby.
There you go.
You call around the clock and call him Disco Boy. When you see him out in the street, you cry openly in his face and call him Disco Boy. I've had it. Someone get me the tape, because if he said anything about us calling him that, I will sue for many millions of dollars.
All right.
In spite of their controversies, or more likely because of them, Opie and Anthony became the top-rated afternoon show in Boston. They released a CD of radio bits titled Opie and Anthony's Demented World that sold over 30,000 copies locally. I'd be remiss if I didn't play a sample of it to give you guys a taste of just how demented this world was.
Hi, this is Harry. I was in your restaurant the other day. I got some takeout.
Yes.
And ever since, I've been pooping green.
What?
I've been pooping green.
You can poop in green.
Green poopies?
Some weird, kooky stuff. Okay. Well, yeah, you know what? Let's just do one more.
Scrotum. Scrotum.
Bolt.
Scrotum.
Screw.
Scrotum. Scrotum.
All right, so as I was saying,
Got my very first boner watching Martian Brady on
Opie and Anthony had so much success pushing the envelope, they had to see if they could push it even further. They received numerous suspensions in their time at AAF, but the one that seems relevant to our story was their suspension for the WOW campaign. WOW stood for Whip 'em Out Wednesday. Their promotion was basically, hey motherhuckers, if you put an Opie and Anthony bumper sticker on your car, then women will see it and they'll flash you. It sounds crazy, but this happened to my buddy Eric. He goes to a different school. There was the backlash you'd expect, including from the mayor of Boston, Tom Menino. He felt that it was sexist and dangerous, like a skydiving misogynist, or Tony Soprano. Opie and Anthony refused to shut down the campaign, so much so that AAF General Manager Bruce Mittman apparently had to fake a letter from the state police to convince them. Maybe it was their egos, maybe it was a desire for revenge on Menino, maybe it was just because they felt like it. But one fateful morning, Opie called a hungover Anthony with an idea for an April Fool's prank. They were going to tell Boston that the mayor was dead. They'd done April Fool's jokes before, including telling everyone about a secret Pearl Jam show that didn't happen, but this was going to be the big one. It started innocently enough, coming out of a plug for not only Alice in Chains, but also an Alice in Chains cover band, just in case you guys thought I was making it up about this happening in 1998. Then, during the throw to commercial, Opie casually drops this line.
All right, and if you got something for the show, give us a call, 931-1AAF. Fax line is 931-1073. And we're also going to update you on the Mayor Menino situation. So stay right where you are. It's the Op and Act Show on the only station that really rocks, 107.3 WAAF.
And the seed was planted. They left that thread dangling as the show continued as usual. And hang on a minute, we gotta stop here because there's a Viagra prank call bit we gotta hear, I guess.
To get rid of it. Do you have any drugs to get rid of it?
No, we don't.
Or should I just stare at a picture of Rosie O'Donnell? Would that work, please?
I didn't like that. Honestly, I expected better from WAAF, the station that really rocks. As the show went on, O&A gradually dropped more and more pieces of information until the story became clear. The mayor was killed in a car accident in Florida involving a bridge. One of Opie's friends called in, pretending to be a reporter on the scene, while others pretended they had heard the story on other radio stations. People began calling in to ask if it really happened, but there were so many fake calls I can't tell who were plants and who were real. What was very real was that they played the Viagra prank phone call again.
My wife ran away. She was frightened. It was so big. She couldn't get wet at Niagara Falls. She's like 70 years old, and she hasn't seen a monster like that since the Kaiser was in charge over in Germany. It's like a big blood sausage.
While the prank itself was a bad idea, the timing of it made it even worse. Mayor Menino was flying in from Florida at the time, which meant nobody could get in contact with him. His sister-in-law began receiving visitors at her house coming over to console her for her loss. His whole family was unable to reach him, and even his wife began to think he may have actually died. Local news channels had to put tickers on the bottom of their broadcasts informing the viewers that the mayor was not dead. When Opie and Anthony found out about the mess they caused, they celebrated on air. And why shouldn't they? They had successfully pulled off a major April Fool's prank, and they were going to be legends. Their good vibes lasted less than a day as the reality of the situation quickly sunk in. This wasn't one of their usual radio pranks. This one pissed off the wrong people. When Menino found out what had happened, he was livid and went on a warpath against Opie, Anthony, and WAAF. He launched an FCC complaint against the pair, saying their actions, quote, signify a wanton and reckless disregard towards standards of human decency and professional ethics. The duo were hounded by reporters, but management told them to keep their mouths shut. One reporter was able to sneak into WAAF studios and get them talking on camera. They took the time to reflect and offer a sincere apology. I'm just kidding, they made things worse.
Maybe it wasn't the best thing to do. Maybe a little tasteless, you know. But it was April 1st, and
I think
we apologize to the mayor and his family.
I am sorry, mayor and family. Seriously.
O&A never got along with the management at AAF, but even they admitted they should have listened to them and kept their mouths shut. Management was scrambling for any way to get Menino off their back, but to no avail. Bruce Mittman famously hid in a bush outside a Menino event to shake his hand and get a photo for the paper, but that just made the mayor madder. Mittman announced they're going to put Opie and Anthony in the stocks and charge people to hit them with pies for charity in front of City Hall. Neither Opie, Anthony, or even Menino wanted anything to do with it. 1 week later, Opie and Anthony were called into a meeting at the Colonnade Hotel in Boston and told that their services were no longer needed. They were fired. A lot of people were surprised that they got fired, as they were such a cash cow that most figured they'd just serve another suspension. As to why a firing over a suspension, well, there are a couple factors at play we should probably mention. In later years, the pair have said that they wanted to get fired. They talked about the reasoning why in an episode of Unmasked with Ron Bennington on SiriusXM.
I mean, we've hinted at it for many years, but we purposely try to get fired.
Is that
I
right?
think most people know that now. Yeah.
Yeah,
we just
might
couldn't.
as well.
We
say
did
it
everything
now.
we could up there. We wanted more again. I went to Bruce Mittman. I'm like, look, obviously we're kicking ass. I think we were the first radio show that was beating BCN up there, and that was just unheard of because AF had a horrible signal in the Boston Metro. And we were still able to beat them. I mean, we were killing it, and we were making still no money. They gave us a few cute raises. The
That
one
was
at the
adorable.
Chinese restaurant.
We went to a Chinese buffet, and Bruce Mittman, it was during renegotiation, and we didn't have an agent or anything. We're like, we could handle this. And Bruce Mittman, I guess he saw it in a movie. He slid a piece of paper upside down over to me. And I'm like, I know what I'm supposed to do. I saw the movie. And I looked, and I just started cracking up laughing. It was not a fraction of what me and Opie, during the drive to the Chinese place, thought we should have been getting.
In his book, Anthony offered a different perspective, explaining that while the grievances were real, any attempts to get fired were probably from their subconscious more than anything. There's also the theory that good old-fashioned corporate restructuring was to blame. This theory has been put forth by multiple people, including Anthony and AAF morning host Greg Hill. AAF was in the process of being sold to CBS Radio, which also owned BCN. CBS Radio also owned a radio station in New York City called WNEW. The theory posits that the CBS radio executives saw a chance to kill two birds with one stone. They fired Opie and Anthony, which allowed BCN to regain their top position. Then they hired Opie and Anthony at WNEW, which gave them a duo for their afternoon slot. Opie and Anthony's New York days started only a few months after the firing. In just a few years, their show grew big enough to become nationally syndicated, where they found themselves in a familiar city, but on an unfamiliar station. Syndicated on WBCN. BCN management weren't overly happy to syndicate Opie and Anthony, but they made a decision to preserve the job stability of their staff and swallow their pride. Even Nick Carter buried the hatchet with them. Whenever Opie and Anthony broadcast from Boston, Nick would stop by the studio. It didn't take long for Opie and Anthony to reclaim their top spot in Boston radio. They were still clearly angry about the ordeal, as every episode after a Boston ratings book came out would lead to an airing of grievances that put Festivus to shame.
You're exposed. You're a bunch of phonies. This the only station that really rocks. Yeah, right. Bye-bye. All the radios that are on right this second, less than 2% of them are listening to our old radio station.
Less than 2.
Less than 2%. Bye-bye.
The feud with Menino never reached a boil, but it never fully simmered either. When Opie and Anthony were promoting their traveling virus stand-up tour or their animation festival, they claimed they couldn't find a venue in the city of Boston and pointed the finger at Menino. They thought he was holding a grudge over the whole "we told everyone he was dead" thing.
Does the word duh mean anything to you?
Time may not heal all wounds, but still it marches on. Mayor Menino did pass away in 2014 after serving 20 years as the mayor of Boston. WBCN is gone too, a victim of their own corporate restructuring when they were taken off the air in 2008. WAAF, true to its underdog status, hung on longer than I think anyone would have expected, but they finally aired their last broadcast in 2020. Opie and Anthony rose like a phoenix from the ashes, only to burn out and fade away, and then rise again, and then fade away again. Luckily, they learned their lessons from the Mayor Menino story. The rest of their tenure as radio hosts were free of any controversies, suspensions, or firings. They became known for their tact, open-mindedness, and conflict resolution skills. They maintain a close personal friendship to this day and look back on their days at WAF fondly, knowing that while their actions were juvenile, it was necessary to turn them into the well-adjusted, gentle young men you see today. April Fools. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, well then hit the like button. If you're interested in more of my videos, hit the subscribe button. I'm gonna keep vamping because I think it's really funny to put over this animation of Patrice saying it's raining stuff over this very sad song. Anyways, thanks for your support.